It's time for another WrestlePlanet news update as Bray Wyatt teases his next move. Boxing World Champion Tyson Fury will return to WWE. And Ring of Honor have released their entire talent roster and have announced a hiatus. All that and more coming up in today's video, but first... On last night's episode of AEW Dynamite, the TBS Women's Championship Tournament continued as Hikaru Shida took on Serena Deeb in the first round. After a hard-fought battle, Shida managed to get a pinfall victory over her opponent and will now face former foe Nyla Rose in the quarterfinals. This is the second confirmed quarterfinal match with Chris Statlander taking on Ruby Soho. This match also marks Hikaru Shida's 50th win in All Elite Wrestling and is now the first ever woman to reach that milestone. There are still 2 matches left in the first round, with Anna Jay set to take on Jamie Hayter to decide who will meet Thunder Rosa in the second round, whilst the Bunny will battle Red Velvet to decide Jade Cargill's opponent. AEW will be taking their time with this tournament, with the final set to happen in January once AEW Dynamite moves to TBS from TNT. And speaking of tournaments, the AEW World Title Eliminator tournament would continue as we head towards the final at AEW Full Gear next month, where we will find out who will be the #1 contender for the AEW World Title. Jon Moxley would make easy work of the Dark Order's 10 on Dynamite last night, putting him away with a paradigm shift for the pinfall. Moxley continued his no-nonsense attitude as he walked to the ring through the crowd all business before leaving as quickly as he arrived, with no celebrations to be had. This win means he will now face Orange Cassidy in the semi-finals in the near future, with Bryan Danielson taking on Eddie Kingston, with the 2 winners of those matches facing in the final at the pay-per-view. The first of the 2 will take place this Friday on AEW Rampage, with the show having been taped after Dynamite last night. Elsewhere on Dynamite, Cody Rhodes would make an appearance where he addressed the fan backlash that he has received as of late, with him continually getting booed week on week, despite being booked as a babyface. Cody would state that he has no plans to turn and apologized for taking his eye off the ball, saying he may have become a little too Hollywood. This follows Cody's regular absences from AEW to pursue outside projects, such as appearing as a host in the Go Big Show with his reality series Rhodes to the Top, adding salt to the wound. Cody would eventually be interrupted by Andrade El Idolo before being ambushed by Malachi Black, who took out Rhodes and his manager Arn Anderson. Pac would then make a save as the heels retreated. Despite calls for a heel turn, it seems Cody will continue to be booked as a babyface, with him going against Andrade, with the 2 meeting next week on Dynamite. At first, I thought this promo was Cody becoming a heel by becoming an unbearable babyface, something similar to Bo Dallas. However, this is in doubt considering his opponent next week and the fact that he's being aligned with a babyface Pac as a duo. Next up, former ECW champion Tommy Dreamer has returned to Busted Open Radio after being removed from the show last month following the Dark Side of the Ring controversy. For those that missed it, Dreamer would appear on the popular docuseries in an episode that chronicled the events of the plane ride from hell. The show saw Heidi Doyle, a flight attendant during the trip, make sexual assault allegations towards Nature Boy Ric Flair, with Dreamer downplaying this, comparing the incident to people being mad that he has a ponytail. As well as this, he insinuated that the alleged victim wasn't believable due to her settling out of court. Tommy's friend and co-host Dave LaGreca would then call the comments indefensible, referencing his daughter and the worries that he has with her going to college with this attitude still existing in the world. Dreamer would return to Busted Open Radio this week with no mention of his absence from himself or his co-hosts, and his return was not explicitly promoted other than him simply being tagged in a link to the podcast version of the show after the fact. Over the past 3 months, various contradicting reports have discussed the expiration date of the recently released Bray Wyatt's non-compete clause. Wyatt, who was let go from WWE on July 31st, was rumored to be appearing at AEW Dynamite in Brody Lee's hometown of Rochester, New York, and there was also talk of him showing up at Impact Bound for Glory, all of which would have been before the typical 90 days that a talent has to wait to appear elsewhere. Fans wondered if this meant that he was released weeks or months before it it was public knowledge, but as we know, he didn't show up in any of those shows. Wyatt took to Twitter on Wednesday to hint that he is set to become a free agent and would simply say 2 more days. As we've discussed on the channel, this means he will indeed be able to appear for other promotions from this Friday and onwards, which is the 29th of October, and we were always skeptical about the other dates. Naturally, with Friday being the night that AEW Rampage airs, some have speculated that the tweet is teasing an appearance in All Elite Wrestling, although it's worth noting that Rampage was taped last night immediately after the live Dynamite, although this wouldn't rule out a possible pre-recorded vignette airing during the broadcast. I would personally love to see them go down the vignette route, showing weekly videos as they head towards his debut, which would build a ton of hype. This would also allow them to tell a story of what's been happening between WWE and AEW. And quickly, just before we continue, make sure you drop a like on the video as it helps me out a lot, and make sure you subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss any upcoming wrestling content as we head, hopefully, towards 100,000 subscribers. But now, let's press play on the video. And next up, we have an update on the WWE status of boxing world champion Tyson Fury, with him said to be making a return at some point in the future. Fury's wife Paris recently spoke with Tom Campbell of Cultaholic on his BBC Newcastle radio show and revealed Tyson is still in touch with WWE chairman Vince McMahon and plans on making a return. And she said, "He is in touch with Vince McMahon all the time. He loves it. My sons are all big fans of it. For Tyson, to do it is kind of like a Disneyland trip. The kids love to go when they meet all the wrestlers. To be that cool dad that can give them kids that dream, he does it. I think that's one of the reasons we've come to do this, and obviously being a young man, he told me he was a fan of all these wrestlers. So he's definitely, probably going to go into that again. I'm sure he will bounce into that WWE ring one of these days." Fury has worked one match in WWE in the past, this at Crown Jewel 2019 in Saudi Arabia, where he took on the now released Braun Strowman. This news follows talk of a United Kingdom-based WWE pay-per-view reportedly set for September next year, although this hasn't been 100% confirmed, but it seems very likely. Fury has revealed in the past that he was set to headline a WWE UK pay-per-view last year before the pandemic struck, forcing plans to be changed. He would have faced fellow Brit Drew McIntyre, who was the WWE champion at the time, likely headlining the show for the title. Perhaps Fury will make a return next September, with WWE likely keen on bringing the Gypsy King back for the show, with him arguably being the UK's most popular combat sports star. And finally, we have some sad news regarding the future of Ring of Honor, as it has been revealed that the entire talent roster has been released from their contracts due to the effects of the pandemic and the company's poor financial situation. ROH is set to go on hiatus following the Final Battle pay-per-view in December. The promotion would post a statement to Twitter regarding the news and would say, "Throughout the pandemic, our top priority was to keep everyone healthy and safe, and despite not producing any live events over 18 months, we were able to keep everyone fully contracted. We now find ourselves at a time where we need to make changes to our business operations and are planning a pivot for Ring of Honor, a new mission and strategy. The year will culminate with a final battle in December, and we will be taking the first quarter of 2022 to work internally to reimagine ROH. ROH has the most dedicated fans in the industry, and we appreciate their loyalty and patience as we reconceptualize ROH. We anticipate returning to live events in April for the Supercard of Honor with a new fan-focused product and provide a unique experience for wrestling fans." In a follow-up report from Dave Meltzer, he stated that ROH have released every member of the roster from their contracts, with PW Insider adding that multiple talents were on today's Ring of Honor Zoom call, and they were informed that if their contracts were expiring at the end of the year, they will not be renewed. Any talents that have deals that expire after January the 1st will remain under contract for a period of time. Brian Alvarez would add that Ring of Honor's talent are free to work anywhere that they want, effective immediately, so we could see some debuts imminently in other promotions. He also added that there is no truth to the rumors on the promotion's parent company Sinclair cancelling the ROH show. Whilst Ring of Honor have laid out dates for a return, many fans are questioning if the company will be in the financial position to continue with such a drastic decision being made. Of course, they hope to return, but this doesn't necessarily mean that they will, as does anyone else remember the WCW Big Bang? If Final Battle does end up being Ring of Honor's final battle, hopefully we can see some legends return to the promotion for one night, such as Low Key, Bryan Danielson, and CM Punk, although many former Ring of Honor talents are contracted to WWE who won't be able to appear. It also begs the question of what will happen with the assets of the company were they to cease operations, with some calling for AEW and Tony Khan to buy up the video library potentially for an AEW network. If this were to be on sale, you can expect competition from WWE, who have been known to buy up as many wrestling libraries as possible, with rumours that they have had talks over this before. Whilst this is all speculation, the ideal situation would see Ring of Honor continue to run shows in April with a fresh new direction, whether that be under new ownership, with new investors, or under the current regime. And before you go, make sure you check out my video where I discuss the secret wrestling returns of CM Punk before he showed up in AEW.